Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name's Sophie and today's video is going to be a May reading wrap up and a very quick June TBR. So in May I read a total of 9 books and DNF'd 2, which was a total of 4,442 pages and an average star rating of 4.11 stars, not including the 2 DNFs. So I would say a very successful reading month, especially towards the start of the month. The last weekend was a bit up and down, but that is coming in a reading vlog. I think it's going to be the next video after this, so you can see my full thoughts on those books there as well. So yeah, let's get wrapping up this month. So the first book I read was The Shattered City by Lisa Maxwell. This was part of Final Book Support Group reading vlog, and this is also the final book, obviously, in the Last Magician series. I gave this one 5 stars. Considering it's a 700-page book, it didn't feel like it took me long to read at all. I think I literally did read this over the weekend. It was absolutely fantastic. If you want the full synopsis of this series, I do talk about it in the Final Book Support Group vlog, so I'll leave that linked above. I don't want to keep repeating myself throughout the videos. But yeah, my general thoughts on this book, I can't really say too much because I don't want to spoil the series for those of you that do want to read it. The plot wrapped up really nicely in this one. There was no loose ends at all. We had a lot of perspectives in this one, so we jumped around through different timelines and obviously different character perspectives, so that kept the story moving really well. But yeah, this series is so underrated. I highly recommend this one. If you enjoyed The Diviners by Libba Bray, I think you would definitely enjoy this one as well. It's the same kind of vibes, sort of setting, but the magic, the plot is so unique. So yeah, highly recommend this one, and I'm so glad I finally finished this series. And then the second book I read for the same vlog was As Good as Dead by Holly Jackson. This is the 3rd book in the A Good Girl's Guide to Murder series, and I gave this one a 4 stars, but I actually think more of maybe a 3.5. I'm really not sure on this one. So this had a very different kind of feel to the other 2 books in the series. I think if you've read the series, you kind of understand what I mean. In the first 2 books, we're following Pip as she is trying to not reopen, but investigate on her own some local cases. And this one, there is a little bit of that in there, but it's more following Pip in the aftermath of solving these previous cases, but also some other things that are going on in her life. So yeah, it was very different to the first 2, and it was good. It's a good ending to the series, but very different to the first 2, and I think that's why I enjoyed it a bit less than the first 2. But I would still, again, really highly recommend this series if you're really into like thrillers, but you don't necessarily want to read an adult thriller. This series is really good. The next book I read in May was Golden Sun by Pierce Brown. Again, I've given the synopsis of this series a couple of times on my channel, so I'm not going to go into it again, and also it's quite a well-known series, so I'm sure most of you know what this is about anyway. But yeah, this is the 2nd book in that series, and I'm reading this one to do a spoiler vlog coming to my channel hopefully at the end of next month or start of July. But yeah, this one, the plot is progressing really nicely. It's battle scene, there's a lot of action, lots of betrayals. The sort of Shakespearean drama is still all present in this book. It's just such a fun read. I also think that the author mashes the sort of Roman Empire inspirations and the sort of futuristic setting of Mars really well. So yeah, I'm really enjoying this series, and I hope to read the next book next month. And then I read Heartless by Elsie Silver. Again, I'm reading this to do a spoiler vlog for this series. So this one is following Willa and Cade that we met in the previous book, because they're all sort of companion books. And Willa becomes the nanny to Cade's son so that he can continue to work on the ranch without having to send Luke off to his granddad every day. And they sort of don't really like each other at first, they're a bit standoffish, and then they spend some nights in the hot tub together, and then slowly they begin to fall for each other. So I really enjoyed this one. I definitely enjoyed this one more than the previous one in the series. I'm going to give this one a 4.5 out of 5 stars. Don't be put off by the fact that this is a cowboy romance. I was quite hesitant going into these books, thinking that it would be a bit sort of cringy, but it's really not the case. These are really fantastic romance books. If you love romance, definitely give these books a try. And if you're in the UK as well, they are 3 for £6 currently in the works, so you can get them super cheap as well. So top tip. The next book I read was Call Down the Hawk by Maggie Stiefvater. I got this one from my library, so I don't have it anymore as it had to go back. And I read this one for a Reading the Oldest Books on my TBR vlog, so I'll link that above as well. And I did enjoy this one, so I gave it a 3.5 stars. So we're following Ronan and then 2 other characters, and we get perspectives from all 3 of them. If you want the full synopsis, please go and watch that vlog, as I explain it better there. I did enjoy this one, but I think I've kind of not outgrown YA, but I'm just not enjoying it as much anymore. And this is an author, Maggie Stiefvater is an author that I have loved everything that I've read by her, you know, when I read it a few years ago. So there's no reason that I shouldn't have loved this one as well, but there wasn't too much plot. And the only character that I was really interested in was Ronan, so I found the other 2 perspectives. One of them I found a bit confusing at first, and then the second one I was just kind of bored by. So really I was only really interested in the Ronan chapters, and unfortunately I'm not interested enough to continue this series. I am glad that I finally read it though, as it has been on my TBR for a very long time, and I think I'll just leave the Raven Cycle there. But I can see why a lot of people have enjoyed this series. It's just personally not for me. So in that same reading vlog, I also read The Fragile Threads of Power by V.E. Schwab. I really enjoyed this one. I gave it 5 stars. So this one is a continuation of the A Darker Shade of Magic series. It's set 7 years later. Again, if you want the full synopsis for this one, I explain it quite well in the vlog that I'll leave linked above. But I really loved being back with these characters. We're reunited with Rai, Kel and Lila from A Darker Shade of Magic, but we're also introduced to quite a few new characters, so it is giving us some new storylines. It's not reopening anything that was sort of closed in the previous series. Brand new storyline, just set in the same world that we all know and love. There was quite a few twists in this book as well that I didn't see coming, and I think it's really good setup for the rest of the series, so I'm really excited to continue on with the series when she writes them. Please hurry up, V. Schwab. And then over the bank holiday weekend, I did a sort of fairy loot themed reading vlog. And this is where it kind of went a bit downhill for the month. So the first book for that vlog was In the Lives of Puppets by TJ Klune. And I did DNF this one. I got maybe like 50 pages through. Like you can see like the book's barely been like cracked open. This author is just not for me, guys. I'm really not into sort of like whimsical fantasy books. Like if I want something a bit whimsical or like fluffy, I'll read a romance. Like I want my fantasy to be a bit more like high fantasy. I don't really know how to like explain myself, but fluffy sort of whimsical there. Yeah, this is just not for me. I did read what was the other book by him? So the Cerulean Sea, I can't remember what it's called. I did read that one and I gave that one 3 stars. Like it was okay, but I just didn't love it as much as everyone else did. And I could just tell from the first 50 pages that this was not really my kind of vibe. So I just thought, I'm not going to force myself through like 400 pages of this. It's just not for me. It's just not for me. And that's okay. So yeah, that was a bit disappointing. And then next up, I read The Curse of Saints by Kate Dramis. Again, another disappointment. I gave this one 2.5 stars. Now, when I read the synopsis for this one, this was right up my alley. So we've got the Queen's Spy Master and then the Queen's Enforcer, and they have a bitter rivalry, and they have to work together and travel to another kingdom to make sure they're sort of staying in line and not trying to start a war. Now, this sounded really interesting to me, but it was just so boring. Like the magic system in this world is really not very well explained. Like they keep dropping words and like names for people, but they don't explain like what that even means. And then, so yeah, I was just really confused by the whole magic system. And like the plot was interesting, like them traveling to the other kingdom to keep them in line, but we just weren't getting much of that. It was mainly about like a sort of a bit of a romance between the two. And like I found the male character quite annoying. I just didn't really like him. And yeah, I just really didn't enjoy this. This was such a disappointment, to be honest with you. This is classed as an adult book as well, but it really read like a YA. Like, that's not a bad thing if you want a YA book, but when you're expecting like an adult fantasy and you don't get much fantasy, and then the fantasy that you do get is just really confusing, it's not explained, there was no world building, I was just really disappointed. Like, yeah. Such disappointment, 2.5 stars, and I obviously won't be continuing this series either. I then read Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez. This was a library copy as well, so unfortunately it's had to go back, but I really loved this one. I gave this one 5 stars. That redeemed like the whole weekend for me. So this one is following two characters, and there's a bit of an age gap romance, but there's also a bit of a, not class romance, but like she's a doctor and she's quite wealthy, and then we're following the male character who he's a want-to-be carpenter and he runs a sort of B&B. So they live very different lives, and it's just about how they meet and come together and obviously fall in love. But I really loved this one. I gave this one 5 stars. There's also some mentions of abuse throughout this book, and I really thought that they were covered and handled really well. If you want some more thoughts on this book as I was reading it, please go and watch that Fairy Loot / library reading vlog, as I do go into it a bit more there. But yeah, I really loved this one, 5 stars. And then the next book I started to read but then DNF'd was Shanghai Immortal by A.Y. Chow. I just couldn't do it, guys. I really couldn't do it. I got like 45 pages through this and I just couldn't. Again, it's an adult book, but the main character is so immature. I just couldn't do it. So she's supposed to be like 100 years old, like immortal, and then she literally just has tantrums and strops like a child, and like she kept saying piss fart, and like when piss fart is literally said 4 times in 45 pages, I was just like, this is going to be said another like 30 times. I just can't do it. I cannot take an adult who says piss fart with a serious face seriously. I just couldn't do it. And then I went on to Goodreads and read some other people's reviews of this to see if it was worth continuing, like if piss fart was going to come up any more times. And actually it got worse according to other people, and she uses like turd like as a swear, like turd, I don't know, like turd something as a swear word, and I was just like, I cannot read this. I just cannot do it. And it's a shame because the plot did sound really interesting to me. Like, to be honest, I can't even remember what the plot of this was, and I only started it last weekend. I mean, the first red flag for me of this book was in the synopsis it says sasshole, and it's like, if you're saying that with, I couldn't do it. The last book I read this month was Immortal Longings by Chloe Gong, and I really enjoyed this one and I gave it 4 stars. So this one is a Antony and Cleopatra retelling, and it's not in like Shanghai or anything, but I think it's like sort of Asian inspired like fantasy, and it's got sort of like a Hunger Games-esque kind of competition. So the civilians in this world can enter this Hunger Games-esque competition to fight to the death. The winner gets to meet the king, and we're following 3 perspectives. So we're following the crown prince and the heir, we're following the princess who's been exiled but believed to be dead, and then we're also following someone else who used to live in the palace but now doesn't. And the princess enters the competition because she wants to win, and it's how these 3 storylines interject and how the competition affects all of them. There's also a really cool magic, is it magic? Like a really cool sort of ability that these people have where they can jump bodies. So your soul, your being, you can jump into another body, and then you can just like walk around in that body, do whatever you like, and then like jump out again back into your body or into another body. That was really cool as well, and that was really well explained quite early on, so when it happened you fully knew what was happening. It was absolutely fantastic. And I have read this author's other works, These Violent Delights, and I really enjoyed them. I haven't read the continuation for that series yet, but after reading this it makes me want to pick up those books immediately. I really enjoyed this one and I gave it 4 stars, and I'm really excited for the next book to come out. I think that's later this year. So yeah, really excited to read that one. Those were the 9 books and 2 DNFs for May. So I'm just going to quickly go through a couple of books on my TBR for June. I'm not going to do a big set TBR. I'm just going to do a couple of books that I definitely know I'm going to get to, and then just maybe go through a couple that I want to read but are not set in stone. The first one is obviously going to be Powerless by Elsie Silver. I'll be reading the next book in this series for that vlog. This one is following Jasper and I think Sloane. So yeah, I'm not really going to go into this one because I've already mentioned it in quite a few wrap-ups and TBRs. And then obviously I'm also going to read Morning Star by Pierce Brown. Again, I won't go into it because I've already mentioned it. But yeah, really excited to finish this series. Another book that I would like to read is A Curse for True Love by Stephanie Garber. So I can't really go through the synopsis of this one because it's the third book in the Once Upon a Broken Heart trilogy, which is a continuation of the Caraval series. I don't want to say anything because I don't want to spoil it, but yeah, it's only a short one. It's only like 300... yeah, about 370 pages, so I should be able to read this one pretty quickly. I'm really trying to continue or finish quite a few series. What I seem to do is read the first book and then wait ages to read the rest of the series, and I really want to stop doing that. So earlier on this year I read the Justice of Kings, and I really want to continue and read the Tyranny of Faith. So in this one we're following the Emperor's Justice, which is sort of like, not police, but they work on behalf of the Emperor to bring peace to the realm, and they visit town upon town and deal with any issues, and like literally from things like debt to murder. So basically kind of like modern like police we have now, and it's written from the perspective of his female apprentice, which is really cool, and I really enjoyed the first one, so I would like to get to this one. I would also really like to get to The Lost Metal by Brandon Sanderson. This is the 7th in the Mistborn series as a whole, but it's the 4th one in the phase 2 series, if that makes sense. I know you need to read this before the next Stormlight book comes out, so I would like to get this one now so that I haven't left it to the last minute to start it. But yeah, I love Brandon Sanderson. He's one of my favourite authors. If you don't know what Mistborn is about, then where have you been? It's an absolutely fantastic adult fantasy series, and I highly, highly recommend it. Mistborn is the first trilogy, follows Rin, who discovers that she is a Mistborn. So in this world we have a magic system based on the inhalation of metals, and different metals can give you different abilities. Most people can only inhale one metal, but a Mistborn can inhale all the different types of metal, so they are very, very powerful, and they're also very rare. Rin is a Mistborn, and it's about how she gets caught up in a sort of rebellion. Yeah, I don't want to say too much because I'm sure everyone knows Mistborn, but yeah, I really want to get to this one ASAP. And then another book kind of on my radar is Last Night at the Telegraph Club by Melinda Lowe. I've had this one on my TBR for a couple of years now and haven't gotten to it, but I really do want to, because I really do enjoy reading like historical fiction novels, and I haven't read one for quite a while, so I'm hoping to get to this one, maybe to have a bit change up the genre a little bit, because there's a lot of fantasy and romance that I want to get to. And then the final book kind of on my radar for the month is Love Theoretically by Ali Hazelwood. This is the 3rd book. Is it I don't know if it's a series or if they're just companion novels, but everyone knows the Love Hypothesis by now. It's blown up on TikTok and everything. So yeah, this is the 3rd book in that series, and I do have quite a few Ali Hazelwood books on my TBR, so I really need to just start reading them. But yeah, these ones follow women in STEM as they're falling in love and also advancing their careers, which is really, really cool. So yeah, those were the books that I read in May and the books that I'm hoping to get read in June. So comment down below if you've read any of these books, ones that I have read and the ones that I'm looking forward to reading. Let me know what you guys have read this month. I'd love to chat to you all down below. I'd also actually quickly like to thank everyone that's watching my videos and has subscribed to my channel. It really means a lot to me that people are watching me and coming back for more, so thank you all so much for that. But that's going to be it for today's video, guys, so please like if you enjoyed it, and remember to subscribe for more bookish content, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.